How to stop mixing languages when you speak. Have you ever been speaking a language and suddenly you say another word in another language in the same sentence? That happened to me a lot of the time. I speak both English, French, and Turkish. So often I tend to confuse the words or mix up the words and mix up the sentences. And it's actually normal. It's something natural. It happens to everyone. You don't have any issue. It's something that happens every time. But even though it happens, there are some way and some things we can use to minimize the occurrences of those mixing of words. So, firstly, you have to know that your brain sometimes bases your language off of your environment. So maybe when you're at home and your family speaks something like French, you will tend to speak French at home. And if you go to like an English school, in the school, you'll be speaking English. Like when I was young, that was how like I was functioning the whole day. When I would get home, every time I'm like speaking French with the family, speaking French. But when I would go to school, instead, I'm speaking English with the teachers and everyone else was speaking English. And now that I'm in Turkey, anytime I go to the uni, I usually tend to speak more of like Turkish. But when I get home, I speak more of like French. So you have to understand your environment where you're more comfortable speaking certain languages because like for me at home I speak French, at uni I speak Turkish, in high school I was speaking English. So you have to understand that your environment is going to influence that a lot. So if you are learning a new language or you're already speaking the language, before you start speaking you have to know where you're located, like your environment. Is this environment for this language or this language or this language? And based off that, you'll be able to speak the language needed in that environment. So, and another thing is like when you're speaking, you have to put in a lot of effort. Like try your best not to speak two languages at once. Not like mixing words, but like intentionally speaking in a language, maybe French, then suddenly speaking in English. You have to like speak. If you are speaking in French, you started speaking in French, you should do all effort as much as possible to speak French in that conversation till the end. Because if you're like speaking French at a certain point, then like you just switch up to English. Your brain is gonna keep that in mind. And anytime you're gonna try to speak French, it will keep sending you words in English or any other language you're trying to learn. So please, when you have conversation, if the conversation is in French, make sure to keep it in French. If the conversation is in English, make sure to keep it in English. If it's in German, keep it in German. If it's in Italian, keep it in Italian. If it's in Turkish, keep it in Turkish. So you have just to do your best to keep it in that particular language. So, and early on, something that might make you to mix up your words very early on in your learning process is actually learning using translator. Because I noticed that for me, when I was learning Turkish, I was like always translating words from like Turkish to English or French without knowing like it was gonna affect me so badly. So because when you like translate the words, later on you'll be speaking the language, then you will know a word, you see, there will be a word you want to say, but all the time you were like doing those translation and stuff and you're like then it just come up in another language instead, another language you're wishing to speak. So let's say maybe I'm speaking Turkish right now and suddenly I'm speaking the Turkish, but a word that I want to say in Turkish, it just comes up in my mind in like English because I was always translating the words in English. So what I would advise to do is like when you're learning new words in a language you're trying to learn, instead of like translating it to the language you know, what I advise you to do is like take the word, search it up on Google, and look for the images related to that word. Like maybe, let's say you want to learn a word like, maybe you see a word like kedi, that's Turkish, it means cat. You see a word like kedi. Instead of going to like your translator and typing KD to get the translation in your language. You should instead go to Google and type the word KD and look up for some images about the word KD. Then it's going to show you some images of KDs, you see. And now when you'll be speaking and you want to use the word KD, you will directly relate it to those images. But if you were studying using the translator and translating to your own language, when you will try to use the word KD, instead, your words of your own language you already know will come up in your brain. So we want to avoid that. So as much as possible as you can, when you see a new word, don't just translate. Research the word online on Google or on any other platform you like. It must not be Google. But instead of just translating the word, just research, okay? Just research. So thanks for watching the video. That's what I wanted to share with you today. If you're trying to learn new languages, don't hesitate to like and subscribe to this channel. I share videos about language learning tips every single day. See you in the next one.